Good evening, everyone. Welcome to this CRE talk. This is the talk number 56. Today, we have the pleasure of listening to Professor Shashank Mehta. He's currently one of the mentors to the SVNIT Surat as part of the CVD program. But he has a distinguished career with NID, close to 30 years with NID Ahmedabad. And he is a mechanical engineer by training at SVNIT, and then did his master's at NIT, and also been associated with NID as a faculty and heading the academic research programs and so on. He was closely associated with the MSME's design clinic initiative for MSMEs, which was launched by NID's quite some time ago. And there are a lot of work they have done in terms of supporting MSMEs through design. And Professor Shashank also brings his perspectives on empowering entrepreneurs through design and so on. So we thought it will be a good opportunity for all of us to listen to Professor Shashank's views, as well as the case studies and experiences from the MSME Design Clinic initiative. So with that brief background, I will pass it on to Professor Shashank Mehta to start the presentation. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much, sir. And thank you for inviting me for making a presentation to this group. It's really a pleasure to kind of also develop this presentation. As I've been also saying, I completed my services in last May from NID. I had about 32 years of service. And also, mostly design, we always say that design can only be demonstrated. Right. Okay. There are very few kind of also books. Now we find many books and everything, but otherwise it's best that it can be demonstrated. Anything. And at NID, we will discuss more in detail about it also. But what we call it as a medical college model, where the professors have to be practicing. Right. So that's the experience that can be brought into the classroom. And that helped also us to understand the reality of life outside. Okay. And it also helped us to remain connected with the industry, with reality, with sector, social sectors, all this one. And also another good part, at most kind of education institute is that you get the experience of heading various different departments, from education to also consultancy department. So I had the opportunity to research department. I had the opportunity to head all these departments. So here, and kind of a last, I think year only that I had got this opportunity to mentor the professors of SVNIT. And that again brought me back to actually SVNIT. That's where I had studied, but I kind of hadn't got chance also to go back and nothing. But now it's something which I could go back to them. I've been now interacting with engineers, even though I'm actually engineer, and then did my industrial design from NID, and then I worked outside. Then I came back to NID, and I was teaching for many years. So this presentation, which kind of now that we always say that we are moving into innovation economy, from industrial economy to knowledge economy to innovation economy. That's where we are moving in. And to me, innovation, while there are kind of a number of what I can say is understanding of what is innovation, anything, but innovation. So the difference between invention, design, and innovation. So as a basic kind of a definition that I use always is that when the product or idea, if it is implemented or commercialized, then only it can be called as innovation. Till that time, it's only idea, or it's a concept. So the whole challenge in Indian context is, while kind of a product development is most difficult also, we get many ideas and everything, but the critical part which engineers have to do it, and the critical kind of also role that engineers can play in this entire series is India and Indian industries have many constraints. And if somebody can work within that constraint and help those industry to move up, that's the kind of a core also expectation that Indian industries expect, also both from engineers and designers. And I think, so in that context, while we work with many different sectors, from craft sectors to social sectors to even industry sectors, and I think one of that major, as I think you also mentioned, one of the kind of my experience that I will share through this entire kind of a presentation is that of a design clinic scheme, which as an institute we had kind of also suggested to the ministry. They had approved it, and then I had the opportunity to run it for about 5 years, from 2010 to 15 onwards, and I think which is now running well. And I think so I will take out those examples also to kind of make my point, about what is design and what is innovation. And I think we also now kind of, there is a lot of movement, and this one that we see, it is making India. Also there's a call, the design in India and design for India, which is a call that has been given by our Prime Minister also. And the focus for all over the India, kind of all the industries and everybody is towards that. How do we make things in India? And design in India, design for India, as well as design in India, manufactured in India, and then it is for export market, which is what is the focus for that. So from within that, one of this kind of area, as I'm mentioning this, I take it up, is the MSME sector. 94% of Indian industries, they fall under this MSME sector. And they have typical kind of challenges also, and requirements. And in the one of this one, which is very interesting part, which I was told, when I was working with Ambala industry sector, they are all kind of all the scientific instruments that we use it in engineering college labs, or any college, the majority of them, they come from Ambala, right? And that one kind of a industry person had told me that Ambala में कोई भूखे नहीं मरता, लेकिन कोई तरक्की नहीं करता. That's a very critical kind of a very important statement. You don't grow. While kind of you are not, going down and everything, but then the problem is that you are not growing up also. Most of the micro, small, and medium enterprises, that is a major issue. How do they move up in value chain? How do they become from micro industry to small scale industry, and from small scale industry to kind of also medium scale industry? That's what is expected, and that's where I think the saturation level that comes into this picture. And think. So in that context, also I think what has been told, that is an industry anywhere in the world. In fact, it also applies to the country also. They have to move up from OEM to ODM, and from ODM to OBM, which is original equipment manufacturing industry, to original design manufacturing industry, and from there they have to move to original brand manufacturing industries. We see it, for years back, it was something which USA, what happened, then China became original, all the equipments and manufacturing that was happening in China. We now kind of also know that their own manufacturing sector is moving towards Indonesia and Malaysia and this part and thing. And it is expected that in next about 15, 20 years back, this entire manufacturing will move towards the African countries and everything. Also because there's huge competition, right? And in terms of kind of developing something on only price segment. There's huge saturation also. So unless and until you don't sell your designs, you don't get value of your work or work labor, and then you can't survive too much for only for a labor charges and everything. And that is something which also Indian industries also have been struggling. India as a country also has been struggling, and that's where the kind of importance of design and design development that comes into picture. That yes, from original equipment, all those industries who are making industry equipments for some other industries and everything, how do we help them to move up in value chain and help them kind of develop their own design so that they can charge value for it? They can charge some premium for this. So that's what is the focus that we have. And I had the opportunity to travel all over the country, make many, because we conducted almost about 1,000 seminars and workshops all over the country. Also, we took up a lot of projects also, and we had the kind of a network of almost about 3,000 designers from the country, and almost about 25,000 industries that we worked on this part. And I liked this one from, I think, Srinagar. One of the industry person had told me that industry, most of the micro and small scale industry, they have so many problems and so many issues and everything that they have the definition of industries in plus dust plus try. They're always kind of also struggling to move up. They're struggling to survive. That's a kind of a problem that they all face and everything. And one very typical kind of issue that you find in all this industry, which I think one of the person had told me in Hindi again, is locha, socha or kia. The mindset is certainly that only when you have problem, you quickly develop some solution and implement it. So there is no systematic process of taking your product further, right? Or solving the problems on a thing. Okay. So all the time, and then majority of the time that what happens is that when you have created a solution, that solution probably may create 3 more problems, which you may realize at a much later stage. Right? So this is the area, okay, that is now more in kind of also the people have been focusing more in that area. And I think, so in that context, again, as a design and especially education institute has one of the kind of core strength, like that I was offering as a one course module to my strategic design management students over design audit and pattern thing, which is what we converted into a countrywide scheme. We worked it out. We worked out all the details and everything. And that's a scheme which was launched. Okay. In fact, it was approved in Parliament, but in 2007, but finally it was launched in 2015. And no, I'm sorry, 2010. And since we had kind of also submitted it, so Government of India asked us to kind of also implement it. So we were the implementing agency for this scheme. And we worked, as I mentioned, with almost 25,000 kind of industries, and we had developed a network of almost over 3,000 industries, almost all the kind of industry associations, clusters, they had kind of participated with us for this kind of a scheme and everything. As we said, throughout the country, we did a lot of kind of a design awareness seminars, workshops, projects. Also, we conducted and everything, because idea was also, and that's the reason why I think that later on that I wrote a book also, which is design, okay, at the doorstep. The whole kind of expectation for particularly for MSMEs who cannot afford design. Right? While large industries can afford design, MSMEs cannot afford design. So idea was to take designers to the doorsteps of these industries, and which is what we were trying to do it. Okay, and we were kind of working on that part and everything. So as a, just I will give you one, I mean, few examples of this one as a workshop that the designers were conducting. They would go there, stay with them for about 15, 20 days, interact with a lot of industries, so can create a holistic document of what are the opportunity areas that exist in that industry for design intervention, for management intervention, for any other industry intervention that are required. And, and also they explain to the industry sectors, industries also, and I think few of them they take it up with as a project. So that becomes a long-term project and everything. And when the designers work on this one, there are so many opportunities for improvements that come out. This is one of the kind of a sector that I'm presenting you is about the Thangad cluster, which is ceramic, which is one of the largest clusters, okay, in ceramic kitchen, okay, and bathroomware development and everything. And they export it to all the African countries, okay, and Gulf and all this part and thing. But when the designers started working on it, they could identify opportunities at all different processes, so at every stage of it. Many of them, just by discussing with the industry person also, they can improve it. Some of them can be quickly solved. Some of them require a little longer term project implementation. Some of them require maybe government support and things. But once that holistic kind of a report that is developed, they get the entire kind of also outline as to what is expected to be done. And then there are industry, okay, then they can reach out to industry for the funding and everything. So to just give you a few examples and everything, that the designers could kind of find out, okay, that where the problems are happening, why these problems are happening, and the kind of issues can happen related to either improving the tools, okay, or improving some kind of ergonomic systems, also improving the way that they are lifting, okay, and taking care of it, improving probably their own and everything. So there are hundreds of opportunities that exist over there and everything, okay, because they had the kind of a rejection it was more than about 6 or 8%, which was a permissible rejection, and they have about 10-12% rejection. Now with this intervention, I think they could reduce that down, including that, okay, there are kind of roads which are not correct, and I think also that is created, and that is adding into their kind of a problems of rejections and breakage and everything, which is what the designers could highlight to them. Right? And based on that, designers could develop the holistic report and submit it to them, okay, from where they could work out at least 3 years of entire plan. And I think many of this kind of also issues were taken up with the individual designer and with individual industry as a long-term project, okay, which then they could take it up, okay, okay. And then I'll show you at least few of the projects also which was taken up and everything. So this was the workshop that we were conducting. Okay, I will now take you to the projects. So the whole idea was that any industry, they can identify that yes, they require design intervention, and because design projects sometimes require maybe longer term kind of a interventions from 6 months to 1 year intervention. Okay, intervention thing. So then they both worked out. Okay, the fees are worked out and everything. And as a government, they would reimburse about 60% of their fees and everything. And that's where kind of an ID's role was coming into picture, because we would understand that whether the project is working in a proper way or not also. Right. And so both the designers had trust in us, industry also had trust in us and everything. So we became a middle person to take it further and everything. Now with that, let me take up that what is the role of the designer. If you see it on the left hand side, the existing product, one of the ENT surgeon in Bangalore, he had kind of created more of a kind of a multi-scope, right? Okay, a redesign of a ENT multi-scope he had designed, because he had to look at inside the ear or nose and everything. So there was a scope that was used, and a lot of people, they use only scope and kind of also some kind of a lens that they were using it. And he connected it with a camera. Right. And then he kind of developed a very simple ENT multi-scope. Right. Now, most of us as engineers, we consider that as a final product, right? Which should be brought in to the market. But then that's not the final product. It has to develop further. So then they came to the designers. Again in Bangalore, and designers developed this kind of, okay, the product. From there, the first level of kind of a product that came out was this one. Because they understood the user, they reached out to many users, also the many doctors, all of them, and they studied how the doctors are using this multi-scope and everything, and then they worked out and they designed this product, which had also won the award. But then after the first stage of this design thing, they again took it further. And now this is the final product that you see it, which is on the kind of a bottom of the right hand side. Okay, pattern thing, which is the final product which is now launched in the market. So the entire kind of a journey from the existing product to the product that has been launched in the market, that's where the design development, and that's where the main challenge, because it has to fit into the constraint, it has to fit into the expectations of the user, it has to fit into the price range, it has to fit into the kind of manufacturing constraints and everything, and then one has to produce it. Right. Which is the key challenge that designers and engineers have to take it up further. So this where kind of probably we can say that is a real innovation, which idea that was taken up, okay, to final kind of a level, and it was implemented also. Let me show you another kind of example also of this one, which and how kind of different issues that arises when we kind of also work with industries and everything. One of this one, which was a machine kind of also deburring machine. This was designed by, I think, one company in Pune, right? And it was very efficient machine. Okay, it was received very well. But the company came to the designer by saying that if I have to display it in international kind of a fair outside India, anything, it doesn't look like that 20. At that time they were selling it about 50 lakhs rupees, anything. But they said it looks more like a freezer. Okay, more like a 2 lakh rupees dabba. Right. Okay. So then designers started working on it. When the designers started working on it and everything, they also brought out a lot of issues, lot of improvements that are required in terms of number of cameras that have to be added, the entire process has to kind of improve and everything. And then they worked out, considering that it's a small kind of a scale production, small scale industry. So what they produced, okay, they cannot kind of invest into toolings and everything. So they used FRP. They also used it kind of also the more backside and front side in such a way the range can be expanded. Okay, so that's a new design that on the right hand side that we see it is then what is the new design, and that actually price also had reduced, which also again kind of after 2 years that was implemented in the market, and it has been kind of working quite well in the country. So again, as what we see it is also that while idea was already developed, when it kind of we started looking at it, and a designer's role is to start looking at it from user's perspective and everything, then a lot of engineering improvements that also happens, a lot of kind of also connect with the user, and usability issues, ergonomic issues that gets resolved, manufacturing issues also gets resolved, and into the final product that comes out in the market. Okay, so let me take another kind of a very interesting. I think there's a Kolkata-based company which was exporting that kind of this manhole in Africa, and a typical kind of a requirement is kind of manholes get stolen. Right. Okay. The cover of this kind of also manhole gets stolen, I think. And so how do we design something, right, which gets locked? and locking mechanism and what do that is. So that's also is a very interesting project. Okay, and the process that they took it up and then they create. So lot of time, even the product is correct, idea is good and everything, but maybe sometimes because of certain features, lack of features, also certain requirements and things, product may not succeed in the market. Right. So designer's role is to kind of be with them for a longer duration and work with them, okay, for this part. And another interesting project in Punjab, which is one of the largest kind of a company manufacturing nuts for the kind of high-end and heavy-duty Tata trucks. Okay, and they were also exporting all over the world. Okay, and only they were making nuts and everything. Now, this is another kind of a very interesting constraint that India as a country has. While they can afford also anything, and there are a lot of CNC automatic machines are available in the market, but they are very high-end machines. They don't require such a high-end, fast kind of a producing machine. They require a limited kind of a also, if the kind of a speed is limited, is fine, anything, but they require that machine within that budget. Right? So lot of times that we say that why in India we require, and most of the industries require more of a appropriate machines, appropriate solutions, which can fit into their kind of industries and everything. So the designers worked on it and developed this entire CNC machine, which reduced the cost of manufacturing to 10 to 15 paisa per piece as compared to earlier 1.5 rupees and everything. So it actually also reduced the costing and everything. Right? And along with that, a lot of other safety issues, functionality issues and everything were taken care of, the part that was taken care of it. And another, I think, very interesting project which was done in Calcutta, which is that those government schools in the villages, while the government provides the funding to the school to build tank also for water, okay, for storing water also, pump also, fetch the water. So they require kind of a water to be fetched from the well and store it in the kind of a tank. And after that, you require maybe air purifier, water purifier, and everything. Right? So you require a lot of also investment, lot of maintenance after that, and all that was required. So the designers, that kind of, I think one of the school only came to the designer, and then the designer developed a small pump, hand pump and everything, which also had water purifier attached to it. Right? So you don't require a storage of part and everything. Right? Okay. So that's an entirely new innovation that emerged, which was again kind of what was implemented over there. And so this is, I think, I have other kind of also examples, and I'm now taking only few of them from design click scheme part only. One of this one, which we can see, is the kind of a combined groundnut harvester. The designers, well, they worked with the industry, okay, which is existing groundnut harvester that we can see, and they could combine harvesting and threshing operations together, right? Reduce the labor cost and time, right? Okay, and which is most importantly that it kind of they developed it in a way that it suits the Indian requirement, which that the farm sizes are kind of less and everything. Roads are some okay. So all that is what was worked out by the designers, and then they developed the entire design. Okay, so there are a number of those also solutions and projects that came out of the design clinic scheme. So in a way, we could actually also showcase the design when it is implemented, especially in MSMEs and everything. It helps them to improve. Design is normally kind of associated only with product aesthetics and functionality and ergonomics and everything, but it could help improve, reduce rejection, wastage material, ergonomics improvement, training and skill upgradation, workstation and tooling design that helped, right? Right. So there are a lot of areas the designer could get kind of involved with the industries and take it further to this part level. So in Indian context, we were conducting a lot of international workshop. In fact, I only was conducting, and that was, I think, DSIR had supported us, and we were kind of inviting designers from all over the world, especially from Africa and Europe countries. Many of them, they came. We were conducting 5 days design workshop where we are telling them that if you want to see real design, you should come to India. Because kind of complexities that you can see, kind of challenges that the designers take it up and everything, which is most, I mean, it creates a most challenging, okay, interesting domain for design and design intervention in Indian context. And there's a lot of opportunities to work. And similarly in craft sector, similarly in large scale industry sector, in NGO sectors, and there are a lot of opportunities that exist. Now coming again and taking it further to Indian context, right? Which is again kind of a most critical part is that development of the entire human personality. In India and NID, what we believe, NID was the first design institute that has to be set up, and I think that the Indian context demands production by masses and for masses. right? Rather than kind of a also mass production system or automation system. Honestly, sometimes there are so many families who gets involved in developing one component, right? Because they're all kind of a decentralized production system that most of the kind of a small scale industry, they supply components to the person's home. Their kind of entire family work on that, then again bring back to the industry, then again probably some assembly they had happen, and that's how they sell it, right? So designer and engineers have to be very, very sensitive, which is not just about reducing cost or reducing only component. On one component, maybe there are hundreds of families who are involved. Anything. So one has to be very, very sensitive about working with these industries. And then we are looking at decentralization and regional self-reliance, which still is very critical in Indian context. So in that context, in 1960, when the first government had asked one kind of American designers to propose the country as to what kind of design institute that is required, Charles and Reims, the furniture, very famous furniture designer who travel all over the country, and then they develop a report which is called as India Report. And they said they got so fascinated with this earthen pot that they travel all over the country. While the shape and form and size are different, they all fit very well in that context and their requirements. Somewhere like in kind of a desert area, they have to travel for a longer kind of distance and everything. So the entire pot is something which they can carry it on their head without even holding it. Right. Somewhere they also, and the kind of craftsperson knew that in which family, how many members are kind of staying in it. So that's where they were developing. Right. Okay. So in a way, I always say that design is actually a foreign also profession in India. We had craftsperson who knew everything. Right. It's only that the production started going away from the users. Right. Earlier, craftsperson knew the user also. Earlier, craftsperson knew the materials also and process and everything. Right? But the more and more that it started going away from the user, where production started happening somewhere else, and users and market were somewhere else, that you require a kind of a specialization like design. And that's how it came out. And so kind of also this IMSIS, okay, in the India report, they said that India required designers who can produce a object like this lota, earthen pot, which is so well developed that there is hardly any scope for any much of improvements and everything. So on that basis, this NID was first set up. Again, as I said, that design is mostly a project-based education. It cannot be kind of also maybe discussed or presented. I think that's most kind of a case studies that you presented. So NID, when we started, is a kind of a ethos are learning by doing, learning together and learning to learn. That's what kind of we take it up and I think. And the whole kind of also credo is about improving the quality of life. Right? Okay. It's not about kind of creating a design for a client, okay, or creating a design for some profit and anything. The whole kind of a challenge for a designer is that improving the quality of life, not only the users, and between the kind of product and the user, there are so many kind of also suppliers and traders and maintenance person and service people, they all come. How does it become more comfortable to them? So that's on one side. On the other side, the manufacturers also, and the laborers who are working on them also. Okay. So one has to look at all this entire value chain, right? And work in this kind of also area, in this kind of area. So originality and conceptual clarity, strong knowledge and skill base and everything, right? Which is what become kind of a key ethos of an ID's education and everything. And most interesting part, as I mentioned, that we have more of a kind of a medical college model where the kind of a faculty members are involved, okay, with the industries outside. And then we invite a lot of visiting faculty from the outside, and I think including the designers also, other members. So we always remain in touch with the outside world. We always can, and also we have a system whereby the last semester they have to work with the industry. Student has to work with the industry. So industry, the way it has started was the industry can get the kind of idea of design in a very subsidized way, okay, without making much commitment to them. And I think because the student is there only for 6 months, okay, and they only have to pay the stipend and everything, but then has tremendous seriousness because that is what is going to be evaluated. So that's how we kind of reached out to almost all the industries in the country, almost all the sectors in the country that we reached out and we remain connected with it. And over the years, while working through so many kind of also sectors and we developed very specific design intervention approaches for specific industry clusters. That's what we had developed and thing, which is what now most of the designers that we see are being using it part and thing. So coming back now to again as to basics of design, See, design finally is all about humanizing technology for masses. In fact, this also voting machine, which is their electronic voting machine. When I was a student, that's why it was at NID. It was getting developed, and I was involved in kind of only to check it up also whether the thumb button should it be in a circular form or kind of also elongated form. Or what should the form? And we have conducted a number of kind of also surveys and everything. But it's so challenging, right? That it works in the kind of a 45-degree temperature also, it works in -5-degree temperature also, right? Somebody has to travel, okay, and walking distance, okay, or has to walk to about 10-15 kilometers also in a different terrain and everything, and it has still been working. It's both IDC in Mumbai and NID, they had taken a one part of it and they had worked on that part. Okay, so this is the most challenging part. While you have a kind of a small sector of your user, it's easier to work on that part. But to do it for larger sector is most difficult part. And humanizing technology, again, as I mentioned, is that the idea that technology is not the product, which is what kind of a user expect. User doesn't expect the machine. User expect either ceiling fan or a mixer grinder. And there are two different parts of it. And I think that's where the role of a designer comes into picture. That's where the entire process of design development and product innovation that start coming in part. And in Indian context, the main challenge is that how do we convert constraint into unique opportunities? Rather than taking it as limitations, how do we take it up as an opportunity and work on that part? And I think these are all the products which I had developed, okay, again, about 30 years back and I think, but then we see it is this is kind of a domestic flour mill, which I was developed. The industry has only 2 lathe machines, but they were producing machines. But then because they had copied the domestic flour mill from somebody else, so majority of the components were such that they could not produce it within their industry. So our entire product had to be designed in such a way that they can use lathe machine to develop it and everything. Okay, right. This is what I think for this CAT indoor that we had developed is again CO2 laser surgical machine that was developed. Part of the and challenge again, whether it's a craft sector or even micro industry, is that how do we merge tradition with contemporary expectations? In India, we can go to the craftsman and say that the market has changed. Now you invest something else, right? Your kind of a craft has no meaning. Your tradition or skill has no meaning and everything, right? And you kind of close this one and learn new skills, learn new tradition. We have to also be very, very sensitive about what are the tradition, what is the kind of a skill sets that they have, and how do we help them connect with the kind of a market outside. And that connect also happens in so many different things. Like one of this person, this earthen hot plate, and the person kind of also applied this Teflon coating on it. So that now also a lot of city areas people have been using it and I think this in Tamil Nadu, our professors have been working for many years because if you see this Tamil Nadu, this sari, which is very costly, right? Okay. I mean, it was okay, right? And nowadays, most people they don't wear sari, and I think they have limited kind of also occasions to wear sari. So people don't buy that costly saris. So then designers and craftsmen work together and think work out okay new product range which can fit within the expected cost range. That is how. And designer, we normally say that in India, okay, we normally say that we in India, designer also has to be catalyst, has to function as an activist also. Right? Because you have to handhold and also do the backward kind of a linkage also and forward linkage also. While designer can develop only this tool, but they also have to understand who are the person who are making it, how, okay, what are the skill sets and everything, where is the bamboo being grown, what are the kind of also rules and norms of the government. Sometimes you have to go back to the government also to have to kind of convince them to change their norms and everything. Okay, part and thing to support this artisans. Artisans do not know how to also sell this product in the market, so we have to take them also and expose them to exhibitions, to market requirements and everything. So designer in Indian context has to connect both backward linkage and forward linkage. So they have to remain connected throughout this part and thing. Otherwise, just leaving it at a maybe kind of just one drawing level or making one prototype and leaving it most of the time in Indian context, it doesn't work. So in a way, if you look at it, design is kind of also there are two sides of the coin. On one side is the users who have a tremendous expectation, who has the kind of also their goals are very high, their aspirations are very high and everything. And on the other side, the industries where they have tremendous kind of also constraints. So these are two completely opposite sides of the coins. Right? And designer's role is to create a kind of a platform which is acceptable to both sides, which is most challenging kind of part in, okay, and that's most on that happens only in kind of a developing countries also, like India and other parts of the majority of the kind of developed countries and I think this kind of a constraint based kind of a situation that arises is much limited and much less compared to what we get it anything. So from engineers perspective, this is again one incubator that I had designed for Bombay, Bangalore-based manufacturing industry. They designed incubator which required hot air, so it requires a kind of a temperature control and thing. So the industry person, because he must be engineer, he used this ampere meter, right? And somebody has to kind of set the temperature through understanding the amperes and everything. Right? So a lot of time, what happens is that we assume that the world we know is the same world everyone else appearance, even if they might speak about it in another language. So most challenging part, which is why in design, empathy is most critical part. Can you put yourself into other person's shoes? While I'm an engineer and I understand how can I kind of also raise the temperature of the ingoing air and everything through kind of a temperature control. Okay, I'm sorry, the current control and everything, but that's the engineering language. The user who are nurse, who may not be trained, secondary users are doctors for this part of thing, and then tertiary users are managers and everything. They won't know anything about it. Anything. Right. Okay. So there's a simple kind of those kind of examples that can tell us this everything, that we need to convert those ideas and then ideas and efficiency wise and everything. It may be very good and part and thing. Right? So what in India requires is the user focused approach. Again, I think I was involved in this railway track tools where there are lakhs of kind of and also workers who work on the track management and track kind of repair and everything. If you see it, they lose all the sense, okay, on their hand also and the palm and everything. They have back pain also. They have a lot of problems and everything. Okay. So we work only to design, okay, create those tools only. Right. Somewhere here also one of the faculty member designed the kind of these brick workers who work on okay the sides of the bricks and everything, the laborers, they have a lot of back pain because they carry 20 bricks at a time and everything. So in contact, design is to adapt the tool to the user. It's not about that, okay, what is available, user has to buy it. That time has gone. Earlier, as what we see it, that if we have to purchase a chair, we go to the furniture store and the furniture store will say that we have only these 5 kind of also samples, okay, or maybe 5 options and thing. If you want to buy it, you buy it. Otherwise, we have no other option. Right. Today, that time has gone. Right. Today, we have to understand what users expect and accordingly we have to produce it and part and thing. Right? Okay. And it's also design fundamentally starts with need. If there is no need, there is no design. A lot of time, design fails in the market because the needs are created out kind of artificially. They are not fundamental and critical needs. Right? So because we have at NID project-based education, so there are majority now that I'm showing is a students' work. Okay, they start as a first project. Right, when they kind of joined the institute and everything, the first level of project they started. If you see it now, this was about again 15 years back where the designer has created a stove, gas stove, which can be lifted up so that cleaning under that becomes easier. One can use because there is limited limited space in kitchen in most of the kind of a small kind of also middle income group or lower income group sectors, houses and everything. And the kind of a stove is used only for about 30-40 minutes in a day, morning and after this evening and everything. So can that space be utilized? And there's a lot of the small opportunities that exist and that arises, and that's where designers work in that area and everything. And most critically is that design starts from a user's perspective, from user end. Right? And when we start from user end, we have to understand that the users, they come from different culture, from lifestyle, they have different desire, their age, according to their age group, their expectations and requirements are different, their emotional kind of connects are different and thing, and one has to understand and use that to convert that product into something which is innovative success outside and thing. And creative problem solving approach. There are again a few of this one that I'll come to this part and thing. We normally say that we use lateral thinking approach rather than linear approach. Anything in the sense that product may have many problems, right? And if we take one problem and solve, and take one second problem and solve, and then the linear approach, a lot of time create more problems. Design takes up all the problem. That's where it is called as an inductive thinking approach and everything, and create a solution that solves majority of the problem. That is one part. Second important part is the designer. It's only observation based, right? Only if the designer and designers are trained to this one is to look at where is the opportunity that exists. Today, if you see it, okay, the seats that the chairs that we are sitting on, all the chairs are well kind of a design, right? Okay, and fairly well improved kind of thing, and they're saturated. So if you ask, okay, that users that how do you feel about this chair that you are sitting on, everybody will say, yeah, comfortable, I'm fine, anything. But that may also makes that there is no scope for improvements. So designers are trained to observe, to identify that where is it that the user can, okay, there is a user requirements for improvements that exist. And at the same time, designer also take it up. Okay, for example, the one of this one, this is on left side, the kind of this ice cube, that was ice cube tray that was developed, which becomes the ice cube becomes, I mean, it becomes easier to kind of take out ice cube. Right. So that's why, because the designer at that time, it was very difficult to take out ice cubes from the tray. So his goal was to kind of simplify that process. But after that, if you look at this one on the left-hand side, right-hand side, this new ice tray, the designer took up a next level of challenge by saying that ice cube, when they're formed, they should on its own come out. Why should somebody touch this anything? So they create a spherical space whereby kind of when the liquid is solidified, it automatically comes out in the market. Anything. So most critical part about design is the kind of user's way of looking at things, designerly way of knowing, which is what I think. Then there are very good books also available on this part. So design is an attitude, and they are kind of trained towards creating that attitude, to train towards looking at those kind of also designer will the way of looking at things, observing parts and everything, and also attitude and thing. So in that same process, even with industries. Okay. When the students work, this is one of the graduation project that the student did with Havels. Now it has come out in the market and got an award also. And I think that student identified that while kind of there is a trend to kind of look get juice also, but again, then there are so many juicers available in the market. But within that trend also, now the trend is changing to fiber. Okay, that how much of fiber that is required and everything. Okay, and the student kind of a student developed this entire product, whereby you can control your fiber content also. And humanizing the design, it has now moved further to even creating, because this is a Philip lamp that has created a beautiful kind of a lamp which gives a sound of what you see is a natural sound of the bird chirping and everything. Right? They realize that mechanical sound, why do you require that part? Right? How do you connect with the life outside? Right? And design also, one can look at it that it can be applied at various different levels. It can be applied only to improve the product also. It can be applied to kind of develop the businesses also. There are countries like Singapore, they have Ministry of Design, and they have been using it. It all depends upon what is the kind of a mindset and benchmark that the faculty and this kind of also industry has set up. And it's all about action. Right. The best part about design is there is no one definition of design. Right. And it's all about action. It's all about keep working, trying it out, okay, building on ideas and okay, and exploring opportunities. And that's how one can take it up further and pattern. Right. So what differentiates design from engineering design is that while engineering design is focused towards use, industrial design focuses more towards the usefulness of that product. Right. And there are three functions of this product, which is physical and reliable performance. That's the first function. Second part is this user friendliness. There's ergonomic and functionality aspect. But the third critical part is that how does the user have better mental feeling? So any product that function into these three areas and mostly because all of them are becoming too saturated and thing, today the engineers focused area remains on the first two parts, and industrial kind of a designers focused area remains on the last two parts. Okay, that's where they work together. And okay, and because the time of development has now reduced so much, right? Every time that we see earlier the car, to bring out one new car in the market, they used to take about 3 or 4 years time. Now the market time has reduced to about 6 months, design and development time and everything. So a lot of concurrent engineering, a lot of concurrent development that is kind of been required and expected and everything. And at the same time, major challenging aspect is that designer, okay, industry doesn't have now time to yeah, just 5 minutes.
Sorry to intervene, Professor Shashank.
Yeah.
Maybe we should give about 10-15 minutes for the question and answer. So maybe you could wrap up in 2 minutes or so.
Right. Okay. So I'll just wrap it up here also. Okay. Right. So designers now kind of also core challenge coming here is that how do they visualize entire life cycle of the product at the drawing stage itself? Because when you can visualize life cycle of the product at the drawing stage, you kind of reduce a lot of kind of also money that kind of goes as a wastage and everything. Okay, so let me kind of also this is now innovation entire process and how kind of invention is individual while there are teamwork that happens and everything. In Indian context, like Professor Masalkar, he has said that we expect getting more from less and for more and okay, not just for more profit, which we call it as a Gandhian engineering. So challenge is to democratize technology. Right? And we find a lot of opportunity, a lot of models. Design, best part about design is that design is not limited only to designers. Outside life, you see a lot of good designs coming out, part of it, whether you call it Jaipur Food or Arvind Air Care and everything. Right? So there are a lot of, or the Mahila Gru Udyog, Lijjat Papad that we see, or Dabbawala, excellent design, where designers also learn from them. Okay, and even kind of we see it, and the challenge that kind of also country is looking is solutions like where the technology like this live straw that changed the entire kind of also the health system of the African countries. Okay, right? Okay, because now it's so cheaply water purifier that they have developed anything. So in conclusion, the role of a designer is that we bring order. Right, we understand the user, especially in the area of kind of functional and okay part, and enhances the quality of life of this part and thing. Let me okay not go into the, so I'll conclude my presentation here with this one, but the whole idea was to kind of give also the glimpse of the strength of design and designers and the need for kind of also my lot of my kind of writings that happen is that we designers and engineers need to work together right from the beginning. Okay, and they have to kind of also, because the most of the issues that we see in MSMEs or anywhere, they're intertwined issues. They're not separate issues. That is in engineering issues, there are okay, and around the world. Okay, which is what one has to do it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Professor Shashank, for giving a complete overview, not only of the design clinic program, but also the subsequent in terms of about design itself and the role of NID and the education process. Now I'll open up the floor for questions. Sham has to leave probably, so maybe you can go ahead and ask questions.
Thank you, Professor Shashank. It was a very, very innovative talk in itself, giving great insights into design. I was just reading this article yesterday in the Telegraph of London newspaper, and the heading is Western executives who visit China are coming back terrified. Why are they coming back terrified? These are both European and American executives of major corporations. And it is, of course, their manufacturing processes and design. One thing, I mean, all the factors that you mentioned for good design practice, nobody can question that. But as somebody who teaches management and business, I was curious that the word rupee or money was missing from the design conversations. Is it not true that good design makes more money for the businessman, manufacturer, seller, and of course, more satisfaction for the user? And in my own background as an engineer, we focused on engineering aspects, but left aside the money part because we didn't want to deal with that. I think I have often wondered why Indian manufacturers do not invest in design. And I have wondered if it could be the case that we don't link good design to higher profits. For example, in the examples you gave, very good examples about the ENT machine and deburring machine, I was curious what happened to the profits of these manufacturers. Was it a good investment in design? And what happened to profitability? I'd like to see some figures of those and for other design projects. Let me stop here. Thank you.
Thanks, Professor. I think it's an interesting question also. And also, there are two parts, okay, to my kind of a reply to this one also. We are an autonomous institute. So we kind of all the time, we keep working with industries also and government also. And right from the beginning, okay, the government will always come back and everybody will come back that you give us figures. In Indian context, initially it was little difficult to give figures and everything. Now, yeah, the kind of two of these projects that I presented here, the very detailed kind of also case study, which is there when we have published what is this entrepreneurial empowerment through design. There are 2 volumes where there are about 50 case studies from this design clinic scheme. We have taken up further and created a detailed case study, which also has some kind of financial figures in that part also. And also in some of that I mentioned also that the cost was reduced. Okay, and I think one of this one, the nuts and this part, which I used. But then the thing is, which I in fact, now I'm reading this another book on innovation. They were also telling anything, a lot of time design, okay, and kind of connecting only with the financial aspect, which is a very limited kind of a view of looking
No,
at.
I'm not talking about only. I'm talking
Yeah.
about
One of
in
that part.
addition to
I
all
understand.
other
Yeah, listen, that's
factors,
good. Correct. Yeah, yeah.
virtues of
But
design, finances are also an important aspect of this.
yes, finance. Okay. So, I mean, that's a basic kind of a bottom line that financial, okay, there is no kind of also improvement in terms of financial aspect. It doesn't go into the production. And most of our graduates work more as a consultant. So the price and then take it up as a consultancy project and thing. So unless and until it doesn't go into production, it's kind of it doesn't kind of also get success. They don't kind of complete that entire project. And so that's one part. But what the thing that I was trying to also mention is that's a very long process. Right. Some of the projects that we had taken up through the design clinic scheme, which you mentioned about this ENT multiscope, it took almost about 3-4 years, okay, to reach to that second stage, okay, and started getting kind of a profits and everything. Nowadays, in fact, most okay. So now I have been seeing outside in the market, lot of those projects, they are getting into profitable part, okay, after 5 years, 10 years, and I think that's one part. Most of the time when we work with craft sectors and everything, the value addition, right, that's another major kind of improvements that happens. The improvement in terms of quality of life of the people who work, that's also another improvements that happens. I think so. We always, I mean, because even government always used to come to us and telling us that yes, we are paying you for this workshop or seminar and thing. Show us what is the improvement. Okay, you were there for 15 days. What is the improvement for that part and thing? And we always say that, I mean, you can't look at things like this one. Okay, but improvement comes in a longer duration. For example, one of the workshop that I conducted in Kolkata, just as a kind of a designer, because he was connected to kind of also client in Bombay, in Bangalore, right? Okay, helping them to connect. Some lot of kind of also workshops where even design craftsmen didn't know how to make their kind of also website also, or maybe their kind of also credit this business cards and everything. Okay, or maybe opening up their own email account. So that's also another area. So that also kind of a value addition that improvements that source and everything. But then we always push for this one is that it takes about at least longer duration of time to really check what is the implementation of the kind of designs critical role in kind of creating profits. But now we have been seeing what all this one that I mentioned with the deburring machine also, as I mentioned also, that not only they can reduce the pricing and everything, but then the products, they're kind of also the number of orders were almost doubled at that time. But exact figures are there. Okay, it's on my website also, both the volumes are there. Okay, which I have uploaded on this part. And that's one part that I was mentioning. Okay. Another part, okay, probably if this China and this part, to me, I'm not very clear about, okay, what are the issues that are happening over there. But what my understanding, okay, of reading of China, this one is that the manufacturing components, parts and everything, they're moving out of China, mainly because the price it has increased. They don't kind of match up with Indonesia or Malaysia and this part of it. They also have been moving from OEM to ODM. Now, a lot of kind of also designs that they are all producing. They also want to develop their own design something. They've been many of like Lenovo also, a lot of kind of brands that we see it now in the market and everything. So they have been moving into original brand manufacturing industries also. So that also, okay, is one of the area that we can look at it. Yeah. So I think that kind of covers part of it.
Yeah, thank you. Any other questions? Sab, you have any
Oh,
questions?
yeah. Thank you for a very wonderful lecture. You talked about Nigel Cross's book. We share your sentiment. In fact, we have a book called "We Are Not Users: Dialogue, Design, and Diversity." And well, really, the point you're trying to make is this. I think, which is important. It is a culture of thinking where both the designer, the user, and the engineer are becoming familiar enough with each other to be able to think across, right? That is the practice. Here, designer is not God. Designer is a facilitator in creating a bridge language between the user and the engineer. You mentioned language. I think we have to think of design as a linguistic process whereby we are defining the need and the requirement to satisfy the need collectively from both technological use and social point of view. I think this message is very clear in what you're doing and could probably be sharpened. I have some ideas as to how you may sharpen, because it is not only the designer, the engineer, and the user, but how you organize them, how fluid the information flows, and how quickly you are able to respond to reactions and effects in the process of design. That is very critical. I do want to say one more thing, that 80-20 stuff, I would like to see the British study, because I have not found a real reference. It's mentioned all over the place, but I have not found the original reference in a long time. I've been trying. If you can send me that, I would be grateful. So in principle, it works, because you can think of it as a Pareto principle and say, well, 20% of the time is spent in committing 80% of the resources, right? So that is the part we have to do better. And I think many of the things which you are doing is right. And the other question I wanted to ask, in the process of doing this, you said you have done case studies. Do you also train your people who are working in these to create very good documentation of the engineered artifact? Because in my mind as a teacher, engineering and design is the discipline of documentation. I was curious about that. I'll stop there. I have other comments, and I will contact you later, because we designed an agarbatti making machine, and the students started trying to sell it. At that time, some big Vietnamese company started selling big machines. So essentially, he broke the whole system, and he couldn't continue. I wish I'll try to connect him with you. This was a great project for women to make agarbatti in their homes, but increasing the productivity by 10 to 15%.
Right.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. No, thanks for asking this one. But also, because last point that you mentioned about agarbatti making units. Okay, I'm forgetting the kind of the town area in Kolkata. In fact, it's there in my this presentation that I made. That small kind of a locality, there are 50,000 women who are involved in making and rolling
It's a
agarbatti.
huge number of women all over
That's
India.
right, exactly. Right, okay, and also, so there are a lot of opportunity. That image itself is there's a lot of opportunity over there to create a kind of a more ergonomic workstation, better storage capacities, more packaging part, and including this machine. Okay, so critical that they have been supplying it all over the country, but they can't export it, right? Because the rolling is not kind of also uniform across the sector, and because it's cut in a more square format. And now very few people, okay, they have got a machine.
I will connect you and we will talk about this more.
So there are so many of such opportunities that exist. Right? Okay, but
unfortunately, the student patented it, made something, then couldn't go further, and he's working in an IT company, which is
that's what. Yeah, right, exactly. You
so
know,
I'll
okay.
try. We can talk later about it. I'll write to
Okay.
you and we'll figure out something.
But also, just to point out, I mean, what you mentioned is very critical. In fact, the design has many definitions. Right.
Yeah.
One of the definition which I had mentioned at the end of my kind of slide also, and there are other designers have done. One of the definition which I had always liked, okay, as a designer, and designer in Indian context by Charles and Reims is a design is all about humility, sensitivity, and empathy. Right.
Mhm.
Okay. That is what, because also creativity is so well ingrained in a country. Okay, everybody has creative anything. So what is it that is required, and which we have understood very well anything, that India, we require a co-creation and participatory approach.
Yes,
So
that's
designers
the only
and
way to go.
exactly.
I
That's
have
what,
a question for you.
yeah,
Sorry, because
yeah,
there's not a lot of time. I'll contact you and talk to you more. One of my dreams, I've been pushing this in many places. I'm saying, I'll give you an example. In the School of Mines in Paris, they have a mineral museum where they collected for a few hundred years. They sent students all over the place to collect the mineral, where it was found, and so on. I think it would be nice to catalog the kind of practices in producing things
right,
that are happening in our villages and culturally. They could provide an enormous amount of insight into producing local products,
right,
which are cheap, which are durable, etc.
exactly,
And we have to bring those people into the design process of the
right,
next generation of products.
right.
This is my dream. If you think we can find a way to see whether we can do something like that, I will be very
Yeah.
interested.
No, that's again very important point is which again I've been writing about it, is that yes, we require to document all those, because and there's so much of diversity in the country, and what is good design. In fact, just yesterday I was writing one paper and I said that we have been following a Western heuristic to kind of define what is good design. Right? And Western heuristics are completely kind of a different. A lot of times it's opposite to Indian context. But we kind of celebrate decorations. Right. Okay.
If I
This.
may make a
Yeah.
comment with respect to that, you see, Western context, it's an affluent society where needs are created, have to be created where there are none. Whereas in our society, needs are all around us, in every corner, every nook and corner. And they are genuine humanitarian needs,
Right.
not one of fantasies or whatever. I'm being sarcastic here, but you know what I mean.
Yeah. Okay, so I mean, no, it's correct. But one of this one also, and now it's the right time, okay, which I have just written about, because they are changing the design policy. Right? They are in the process of kind of also improving the design policy and bringing out new design policies. I was writing to them, like South Korea, right? They have started realizing also that they are understanding what is Korean design, right? What is the key? Okay, and then they are marketing that, because branding now is all about their own kind of authenticity. Okay, what kind of also creative part and thing. So it's also important that we will have to realize what is Indian design, and we'll have to slowly market and brand it as Indian design. Right? Even though it's a very complex, okay, and challenging task and everything, but that's something which one has to take it up now.
If
There's
somebody
one
else wants to
question.
ask a
Yeah,
question,
there's one
otherwise I have a
question on
short.
the chat, which is from Siddhant, I think. It is how can we identify the point where effective design ends and over design begins?
Okay, that's very, very good kind of a question. Very good question. Okay. See, effective design in a kind of a, sometimes when we are in the market, okay, and most of our designers are trained to kind of set up their own consultancy. Okay, and they go out, set up their own concern. It's only now kind of last few years that they are taking up job and everything. But design can finally, okay, which I keep telling my student also, there is nothing like 80% design or 90% design. Either you are 100%, and then 100% means that it goes out in the market, earns money. Okay, only then and then it can be considered as a successful or effective design. Now, interesting part, a lot of times I can also ask, because a lot of design kind of awards, you can find maybe architect who has designed a very high-end, okay, building with maybe 5 crore or 10 crore or 20 crore. I mean, you can also find somebody who has developed a very low income proper house also. And how do you judge them? That's where your clarity and benchmark of design that is required. Okay, which is how do we justify the context? How do we justify that the kind of solution connects to the need? solution connects to the user, solution connects to the manufacturer. If that is what is justified, okay, and improved anything, then it's not necessary, okay, that only when kind of this Steve Jobs design, okay, or maybe Apple is the best design and our, okay, a lot of time you'll find our designs are much better and thing. But then those heuristic and this one has to be designed. But as I mentioned, that best kind of a part in kind of Indian context and thing is that yes, it has to work outside in a better way in the market, okay, which is again kind of a much better criteria that we can use it for time being. I'm not saying that, okay, because in market, a lot of time, what is something, okay, that, and that's where designer and the design institute has a much higher benchmark than it is, okay, required anything. But I mean, we can start with that part. Yeah.
So maybe we can take one more question. If anyone has a question, can you unmute and ask? Okay, I had one question, which is when you talked about this design clinic case studies, there was a client and there was a design firm involved.
Right.
So how did this relationship, what was the nature
Yes.
of relationship
Yes.
between NID, the design company, and the client? Who identified them? Some
Right.
light can you throw on that?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I mean, I didn't mention about this one, but NID's role, okay, was to implement this design clinic scheme. Okay, so to become, and then the whole idea was that MSMEs cannot afford designers. So then a lot of kind of those financial part were reimbursed from the ministry. Part of it, the industry was paying, part of it was coming from government of India. And okay, so NID's role was to this one. So for that part, we kind of connected with lot of industry associations outside and everything. And on the other side, we connected with a lot of designers. And we created a network of almost about 3,000 designers. So wherever there are industries who come forward, okay, and also it was happening that industry probably most of the time they don't realize that there is an opportunity for design improvements within their industry. So we had to send. Okay, that's how the seminars was just a beginning, creating awareness. After that, a detailed workshop where the designer would stay there, identify opportunities along with the industries and everything, and then work out proposals, which can then go further to the government and everything, and then they approve. That's how it was taken up further part. But interesting part is that how it started was also, as I mentioned, that from course that we had taken up further and everything. And the kind of one discussion during one of the discussion, the secretary, I think, Ministry of MSME, he had said that yes, NID does a good work. Somewhere as a one kind of a designer, one creates good work. Okay, one good project and everything in one corner of the country that happens. After that, maybe another 6 months out, okay, and somebody else creates a good kind of a project and see. But India requires at the same time 200 such good work happening all over the country. So that's the reason why I have this one is that this project, and my book says about this one, is not about the administrative part of implementing the design clinic scheme and everything. It's all about how do we scale up what is good model? How do we kind of ensure the quality, the benchmark of a maybe seminar or workshop that may happen in one of the farthest corner of a eastern sides or this part and thing where we are not even there. Even then, how do we maintain the same quality and same benchmark? Right. So we were creating those parts, and the whole thing was that because we were involved with conducting so many seminars and workshops through NID also, and doing projects and things, so we knew how to do it, and so we had worked out very clear guidelines, very clear expectations for designers, right? And this part, and that's how we implemented. So I normally, if you see it, is more the design clinic scheme implementation is more of a scaling up approach of one good design, a design approach.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how we created a part.
Okay. So thank you, Professor Shashank. Are there any other questions? Anyone else?
Yeah, I have lots of questions, but I won't ask them today.
Yeah.
I will ask
Okay, I think we'll connect
Yeah.
anytime.
We'll probably, maybe Professor Shashank, we normally have every Monday we have a meeting.
Okay.
Maybe we'll send across an invite. You could join one of those sessions.
Sure. Yeah.
So thank you very much for taking your time and speaking to us. I think it is very relevant for especially the institutions that are going through the CBD program. There is, while we are talking about design and entrepreneurship among students and faculty, connecting with the local industry could also be a good way by which this could be expanded. So some of the ideas and perspectives, I think, will be very useful for the institutions which have joined here. So thank you for your time.
Can I
We
add
will
one
be,
thing, Sudhir?
yeah,
Sudhir, I
please.
just want to add one thing. Do you think that you may be able to go to some of these institutions, I mean, academic institutions, which are trying to figure out what to do, some seminars on your site so that they can reach out to the local SMEs and MSCs as a way to create projects for themselves and develop the kind of competence you're talking about? It's just a thought.
Yeah. So as part of the CBD, we have had an element where we said some local industries need to be brought in to support the program. I think that thread needs to be explored, and some partnerships, if they are evolved on probably similar lines, that could be a nice way of connecting these two programs.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for
Thank you,
inviting.
Professor
Thank you so much
Shashank.
for inviting me.
Yeah. Thank you also to all the participants for joining. I wish you all a happy Diwali over the coming weekend. We will catch up again. We'll let you know in the next talk shortly. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.